The big suspicion moment energy shifted. Something felt off. There's always that one moment. That quiet, uncomfortable moment when nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels wrong. That's when it hit me. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a shift in energy so sharp my chest felt tight. Something felt offhand this time. I couldn't ignore it. Up until then, I'd been making excuses like it was my full-time job. Late replies, busy, dry texts, tired, weird vibes, stress. I had explanations stacked up like a defense lawyer, but that day, none of them worked. The vibe was different. Cold, distant. Like he was physically present but mentally gone. And when energy changes without explanation, that's when your intuition taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, wake up." We were on the phone, and normally he'd joke, flirt, say dumb stuff just to hear me laugh. But this time, flat. One-word answers, long pauses, like he was distracted but not the normal distracted. It felt intentional. Like his attention was somewhere else, and I was just background noise. That's when my stomach dropped. I remember thinking, why does he sound like he doesn't care if I hang up? That thought alone scared me, because when someone who used to cling to your voice suddenly doesn't care if you're gone, something shifted behind the scenes. I asked him what was wrong, calmly, no attitude, no accusations, just, "You good?" And his response wasn't reassuring, it was defensive, quick, sharp. "Why are you always asking that? Nothing's wrong." And there it was, that tone, that edge, that irritation for no reason. That's when the suspicion officially clocked in. Because when nothing is wrong, people don't snap. When nothing is wrong, reassurance comes easy. But when someone's hiding something, every question feels like a threat. After that call, I just sat there in silence. No tears, no anger, just that weird buzzing feeling in my head. My body knew before my brain caught up. My intuition was wide awake now, replaying every moment I'd brushed off before. The late replies, the phone always face down, the sudden busy phases, the way his energy dipped whenever I mentioned certain names or places, it all started connecting. And that's a scary feeling when the puzzle pieces you didn't want to see suddenly clicked together. The next few days I watched instead of reacted. And let me tell you, when you stop reacting emotionally and start observing quietly, people expose themselves fast. His behavior changed even more. He'd text me less, but be online. He'd say goodnight early, but his snap score would jump. He'd say he was exhausted but somehow had energy for everything except me. And the craziest part, he wasn't even trying that hard to hide it anymore. That's when I knew, something where someone had his attention, and it wasn't me. One night I sent a simple message. Not needy, not dramatic, just something sweet. Hours passed, no reply, but I saw him active, posting, laughing, living without me. And that silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. That's when the pit in my stomach turned into clarity. I wasn't paranoid, I wasn't insecure, I wasn't tripping. I was reacting to change, real change. The kind that doesn't come from stress or a bad day. The kind that comes when someone emotionally checks out but hasn't told you yet. The energy shift was undeniable. Conversations felt forced, compliments stopped, effort disappeared. And whenever I tried to talk about it, he'd dismiss it like it was nothing. You're reading too much into it, but see, that line only works when nothing's actually happening. When something is happening, it just confirms your suspicions. I started remembering how it felt at the beginning. How eager he was, how consistent, how present. And then I compared it to now. The difference was night and day. And people don't change like that without a reason. One specific moment sealed it for me. I called him unexpectedly. No warning, no text. First, he answered, but he sounded panicked. Not surprised, panicked. His voice dropped. He asked, "Why'd you call?" Instead of, "Hey, what's up?" That question told me everything. Why would someone be nervous to hear from their partner? Why would your voice feel like an interruption instead of comfort? My heart sank, but my mind was sharp. That was the moment I stopped doubting myself completely. After that, I noticed how careful he was with his words, how he'd avoid details, how stories didn't line up anymore, how timelines got messy, how his excuses sounded rehearsed, like he'd already practiced them just in case. And the wild part, he still acted innocent, still played confused, still acted like I was the problem for sensing the distance. But the energy never lies. Words can lie, screenshots can be deleted, stories can be rewritten, but energy tells the truth every single time. I didn't confront him right away. That was the difference this time. Old me would have exploded, demanded answers, cried, begged for honesty. New me, I stayed quiet. I watched, I listened, I paid attention, and the more I did, the clearer it became. He wasn't acting single by accident. He wasn't distant by coincidence. He wasn't cold because of stress. He was guilty. That suspicion moment changed everything. It was the turning point. The moment I stopped trying to save the relationship and started protecting myself. The moment I realized I didn't need a confession, I needed confirmation. And confirmation comes from patterns, not promises. Something felt off-hand. That feeling wasn't insecurity. It was awareness kicking in. And once that door opens, you can't close it again. You can pretend, you can delay, but you can't unknow what your intuition already figured out. That was the moment the roles shifted. I wasn't chasing clarity anymore. I was gathering it. I wasn't reacting to his behavior. I was studying it. And while he thought he was still in control, the truth was already 3 steps ahead. Because when energy shifts, it's not random, it's a warning. And this time, I listened. Me doing detective mode, quiet, smart, patient. Once that suspicion settled in, I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I went quiet and silence. Silence is dangerous when someone thinks you're still clueless. That's when I switched into detective mode. Not loud, not messy, not emotional. Calculated. Patient. I stopped reacting to what he did and started watching how he moved. See? When someone thinks you're still trusting them, they get careless. They slip. They repeat patterns. They expose themselves without realizing it. And I knew if I played it right, the truth would walk straight into my hands. I didn't accuse him anymore. That was the first change. No questions like, where were you or who were you with? I kept it light, casual, almost unbothered. And that threw him off. Because manipulators feed off reactions. Take that away, and they start spiraling. Meanwhile, I was clocking everything. Response times, tone changes, what days he went distant, what nights he suddenly had plans. I noticed patterns fast. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always busy, weekends, emotionally unavailable, random late nights, phone on silent. Stories started repeating, but the details didn't match. Same excuse, different timeline. That's when you know someone's lying from muscle memory, not truth. I also stopped oversharing. That was key. I used to tell him everything. My day, my feelings, my stress. Now, I kept it minimal. Because the less information you give, the fewer weapons they have against you. And suddenly, he was the one asking questions. That shift was powerful. He started checking in more, but not out of love, out of control. When someone feels you pulling your energy back, they get nervous. And nervous people make mistakes. I didn't snoop illegally. I didn't hack. I didn't cross lines. I just paid attention to what was already public and obvious when you actually look. Social media patterns, timing, interactions that didn't align with what he told me. He'd say he was asleep, but be active online. He'd say he was alone, but tagged locations didn't match. He'd say he was busy, but somehow had time for everyone else, and I didn't call it out. I documented it in my mind in notes, in screenshots where appropriate. Quiet evidence. Clean evidence. The kind that doesn't rely on emotion. I also tested consistency, not manipulation. Just observation. I'd casually bring up the same topic days apart and listen to how the story changed. Different wording, different details, different energy. Truth doesn't shift like that. Lies do. And the craziest part, he thought everything was fine. That's the beauty of patience. When someone believes they're in control, they stop guarding themselves. He kept lying with confidence, not realizing I wasn't believing a word anymore. I wasn't arguing, I wasn't convincing. I was confirming. I started trusting my intuition again, but this time I backed it up with logic. Every gut feeling got cross-checked with facts. Every something feels off got followed by observation, and every inconsistency got filed away mentally. Emotionally, I detached without making it obvious. That was hard, because when you still care, pretending not to react takes discipline. But I reminded myself, clarity first, closure later. I also noticed how he slipped up when relaxed. When people lie, they're careful. When alert but careless. When comfortable. Casual conversations exposed more than confrontations ever did. A comment here, a name there. A reaction that didn't match the situation. I didn't rush the process. That's where most people mess up. They confront too early. They show their cards before the game is finished. I stayed patient. Because patience isn't passive, it's strategic. The longer I waited, the clearer it became. He started contradicting himself without realizing it. Stories overlapped. Timelines collided. And suddenly, the confusion he'd created for me started working against him. Because lies stack up. Truth doesn't. I also watched how he treated me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Less effort. Less reassurance. Less care. That told me everything. When someone believes you're locked in emotionally, they stop trying. And that drop in effort, that's evidence too. There was a moment quiet, almost boring. I realized I already knew the truth. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need to catch him red-handed. The pattern was loud enough, but I still waited. Why? Because knowledge is power, but timing is everything. I wanted facts, not assumptions, proof, not feelings. Because when the time came, I wanted him unable to twist the story, unable to play victim, unable to gaslight. And the irony. The calmer I got, the sloppier he became. He started over-explaining things I didn't ask about. That's always a tell. Innocent people answer questions. Guilty people volunteer excuses. He was doing the second one. I stayed neutral. No sarcasm, no anger. Just listening inside, though. I was 10 steps ahead. Detective mode isn't about obsession, it's about clarity. It's about removing emotion long enough to see reality clearly. And once you see it clearly, you can't be manipulated anymore. I wasn't trying to catch him. I was trying to understand what I was dealing with. And what I learned was simple. He wasn't confused, stressed, or misunderstood. He was calculated and careless. By the end of this phase, I wasn't hurt anymore. I was focused. Hurt clouds judgment. Focus sharpens it. I had answers. I had patterns. I had receipts. Some physical, some behavioral. All undeniable. And the most powerful part, he had no idea. He thought I was still trusting, still patient, still believing his words. He didn't know I had mentally stepped out of the relationship and into strategy. That's when the dynamic fully flipped. Detective mode taught me something important. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to react to control the situation. Silence, observation, and patience will always outplay chaos. And once I had everything I needed, that's when the real ending started forming. Finding the proof, screenshots, messages, timelines not lining up. There's a moment when suspicion turns into certainty. Not because of emotions, not because of intuition alone, but because facts start stacking up so cleanly that denial becomes impossible. That's when I found the proof. And no, it didn't come all at once. It came piece by piece, quietly, patiently. Like a puzzle assembling itself while he thought I was still clueless. At this point, I wasn't guessing anymore. I was verifying. I started with timelines, not obsessively strategically. I noticed how often his stories relied on time. I was asleep, I was busy, I wasn't on my phone. Time-based excuses are the weakest ones because time leaves traces. So I compared. The night he said he fell asleep early. His activity said otherwise, not just multiple nights. Same pattern, same excuse, different reality. I didn't jump to conclusions. I waited because coincidences happen once. Patterns don't. Then came the screenshots. Not invasive, not illegal. Just what was already visible to me. Messages he sent and deleted. Replies that didn't match the conversation. Tone changes mid-thread like someone else had just messaged him. Gaps where responses should have been. One screenshot by itself doesn't mean much, but 10 of them, now you're looking at evidence. I noticed how his texting style shifted at certain times. Short replies, no emojis, no affection. Like his attention was split. And every time that happened, the excuse was the same. Just busy doing what rehearsing lies. Then there were the inconsistencies in stories. This part was almost laughable once I stepped back emotionally. Same situation, different versions depending on the day. One time he said he went out with friends. Later it became just one friend. Then suddenly, he never went out at all. Truth doesn't need editing. I started writing things down, not dramatically, just notes, dates, what he said, what actually happened. I didn't trust memory anymore. I trusted records, and the records didn't lie. One night stands out clearly. He told me he was home, tired, phone dying. Sweet goodnight text. I didn't respond right away. 30 minutes later, his online activity spiked. Not just once, multiple times. And yet, no reply to me. That was the crack in the glass. Because when someone wants to talk to you, they make time. When they don't, they make excuses. Then came the messages. Not messages I wasn't supposed to. See, messages he forgot existed. Old conversations resurfacing. Names popping up he said meant nothing. Inside jokes that didn't match the timeline of when he claimed to have met certain people. I didn't confront him. I let it sit. And the longer I waited, the sloppier he got. He started contradicting himself within the same week. Same excuse, different context. Same story, different details. And every time I asked a neutral follow-up question, he'd either deflect or over-explain. Over-explaining is a confession without admitting anything. Then there was the moment I lined it all up. Messages on one side, excuses on the other, timelines running parallel and never touching. That's when it became undeniable. This wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't stress. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was deliberate. What hit me hardest wasn't even the betrayal, it was how confident he was while lying. How comfortable, how practiced, like he'd done this before. Like he assumed I'd never look deeper. But here's the thing about people who lie casually. They underestimate quiet intelligence. I realized something important in that phase. Proof isn't just screenshots. Proof is behavior. Proof is consistency. Proof is what someone does when they think you're not watching, and I had all of it. There were moments I felt tempted to confront him immediately, to throw the screenshots in his face, to demand answers, but I didn't, because I knew how he operated. Denial, victim mode, gaslighting. I wanted something stronger. I wanted clarity without chaos, so I kept collecting. I noticed how his excuses always benefited him, how they conveniently erased accountability, how timelines bent just enough to protect his image. But lies don't exist in isolation, they overlap, and when they do, they expose each other. That's exactly what happened. Two different stories, same night, same time, different explanations. And suddenly, there was no version of events where he wasn't lying. That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling calm. Because clarity brings peace even when the truth hurts. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad, I wasn't confused. I was grounded. The fog lifted, the anxiety disappeared. Because uncertainty is worse than betrayal. And now, there was no uncertainty left. The proof didn't scream, it whispered, but it was loud enough. And the irony, he still thought he was in control. He kept talking like nothing was wrong, kept lying casually, kept acting like I was the same trusting person I used to be. He didn't know I had timelines mapped out in my head, messages saved, patterns memorized. He didn't know the story was already finished. I was just choosing when to turn the page. Finding the proof didn't make me reckless. It made me precise. I knew exactly what I was dealing with now. A person who lied without hesitation, who manipulated without guilt, who relied on confusion to maintain control. And once you see that clearly, you stop trying to fix the relationship. You start protecting yourself. That's the real shift. I didn't need revenge in that moment. I needed dignity. I needed closure. I needed to walk away knowing I wasn't crazy, insecure, or imagining things. The proof gave me that. Screenshots, messages, timelines that refused to align no matter how many excuses he threw at them. And the most powerful part, I didn't even need to show him everything, because the truth doesn't need to be shouted. It stands on its own. That phase taught me something I'll never forget. When someone is lying to you, don't rush to confront, slow down and observe. Let them talk. Let them explain. Let them dig. Because eventually, the hole gets too deep to climb out of. And once you have the proof, you're no longer reacting. You're choosing. Realizing I wasn't the only one. Yeah, that hurt. There's a kind of pain that hits differently than anything else. It's not heartbreak. Not betrayal, it's the sharp burning sting of realizing you weren't the only one, and yeah, that hurt. I had already pieced together the patterns, the lies, the screenshots, the timelines that didn't match. I knew he was manipulative. I knew he was careless. I knew he didn't respect my time, energy, or trust. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment I realized it wasn't just me. At first, it started small. Just little hints. A casual mention in a conversation that didn't sit right. A friend's vague comment. I thought you knew. That kind of thing that makes your stomach drop, makes your chest tighten. You try to dismiss it, rationalize it? Nah, they must be wrong. I'm probably overthinking, but that feeling, that gut scream, it doesn't lie. And then the confirmation came. Not in a big cinematic way, no shouting matches or dramatic reveals, just fax messages, screenshots, things I hadn't seen before. Evidence that someone else existed in the corners of his life. Someone he'd never told me about. Someone he prioritized when he said he was busy or alone. I remember staring at my phone, scrolling through the threads over and over, trying to make sense of it. Trying to convince myself that maybe there was an innocent explanation. But there wasn't. The details lined up perfectly, and the timeline confirmed it. He'd been talking to her while I thought he was talking to me. He'd been messaging her while I believed we were exclusive. He'd been lying to me, and yeah, that hurt. But it wasn't just the act itself, it was the betrayal layered on top. The fact that he knew what he was doing, the fact that he thought he could hide it, the fact that he underestimated me, assumed I'd never notice. Or worse, assumed I'd just forgive him because I wanted to love him. That kind of betrayal cuts deep. It makes you question everything you thought you knew, not just about him, but about yourself. How did I miss the signs? How did I allow him to manipulate me this long? Was I too trusting, too naive, too blinded by what I wanted instead of what was real? And the emotions hit like a freight train. Anger, hurt, disgust, confusion, but also clarity. Because once you see it, really see it, you can't unsee it. That's the difference between suspicion and certainty. And trust me, certainty changes everything. I took a deep breath and started mapping it out. Not to confront him yet, not to explode, just to understand. I lined up the messages. I noted the times he claimed he was with me versus when he was actually talking to her. I compared the screenshots to the excuses he'd given. And every single one of his lies became a building block of evidence. Yeah, it hurt. But pain can be powerful when you channel it. Instead of letting it make me weak, I let it sharpen me. Every detail I discovered, every fact I confirmed, every lie exposed those were weapons. Not for violence. Not for revenge just yet, but for clarity, for strategy, for the eventual moment when the truth would matter more than his excuses. And let me tell you, seeing the evidence that he wasn't loyal, it's sickening. Not just emotionally, but mentally. You replay moments in your head and realize they weren't real. The late-night calls he forgot to make. The texts he claimed he sent but didn't go through. The plans he said he was committed to but canceled because he was somewhere else. And all along, there was her. Always her. I'll be honest, there were tears. Quiet ones. The kind that slide down your face when you're alone and trying not to scream. Not just because of him, but because of the image of him I had built in my head. The love I thought we shared. The dreams I thought were real. It all felt like a lie. And that kind of realization, it's like someone rewrites your entire memory of the past months. But here's the thing about Pen. It teaches you to see clearly. The first hurt makes you angry. The second hurt teaches you caution. And the third hurt, the one that comes when you realize you're not the only one, that's the one that flips the script, because it removes the illusions. It removes the excuses. It removes any lingering attachment to who you thought they were. And suddenly you see them for who they really are. I started noticing patterns I'd ignored before. Times when he was working late, but always active online. Nights when he was studying, but responding to her messages instantly. Weekends when he was with family, but posting photos that didn't include me. And everything suddenly made sense. Every gut feeling I'd ignored. Every red flag I'd rationalized. Every small light all pointed to the same truth. Yeah, it hurt. But hurt is clarifying. Pain strips away delusion. It forces you to look reality in the eye and decide, am I going to stay trapped in this lie, or am I going to step out and take control? And I chose control. I didn't confront him immediately. That would have been satisfying, sure, but it wouldn't have been smart. I needed to understand the full extent first. I needed to gather every piece of evidence, every inconsistency, every lie lined up with the truth. Because once you do that, confrontation becomes not just about emotion, but about undeniable facts. And facts don't lie. So I watched quietly, documented meticulously. Not out of obsession, but out of strategy. I had already learned from the gaslighting, the lies, the victim playing, and the small, unnecessary betrayals. I knew that confronting too soon would just give him space to manipulate, excuse, or gaslight me again. Patience, observation, and preparation were my weapons, and as I collected proof, I felt a shift. The hurt remained, but it was no longer paralyzing. The shock of realizing I wasn't the only one transformed into fuel. Fuel to be calm, calculated, and patient. Fuel to see the full picture before making a move. Fuel to make sure that when the truth came out, it couldn't be twisted or denied. I started cross-checking everything, messages he sent to me versus messages he sent to her. Excuses versus actual activity. Locations versus claimed whereabouts. Patterns emerged so clearly that even the most manipulative tactics couldn't cover them anymore. The inconsistencies weren't small anymore, they were glaring. And each one reinforced what I already knew. He had chosen someone else while pretending to be loyal to me. The emotional roller coaster hit me in waves. Anger, disappointment, disgust, but underneath it all was clarity. For the first time in months, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel second-guessing myself. I didn't feel trapped by manipulation. I felt empowered, because I had the truth, and the truth can't be argued with. And yeah, I won't. The hurt was real. The betrayal cut deep. It's hard to see someone you loved casually toss your heart aside for someone else. It's hard to reconcile the person you thought you knew with the person who lied consistently and deliberately. It's hard to accept that the love you gave was never truly valued. But here's the thing. Hurt fades, clarity stays. Knowledge stays, power stays. By the time I had everything lined up, proof, patterns, screenshots, timelines, the hurt became secondary. It was no longer about pain, it was about strategy, about truth. About making sure the lies, betrayals, and manipulations couldn't continue without being exposed. And I knew that when I finally decided to act, it would be on my terms, not his. So yeah, it hurt, realizing I wasn't the only one, but it also set me free. Because once the truth is visible, you can't be fooled anymore. Once the lies are documented, you can't be gaslighted. Once the betrayal is undeniable, you can't be manipulated. And in that freedom, the hurt loses power, and clarity gains it. The realization wasn't just about him, it was about me. About my strength. About my ability to see reality even when it's painful. About my patience, intelligence, and strategy. About taking control when someone tried to steal it from me. And that's a lesson that stays with you long after the initial shock. Long after the tears. Long after the betrayal. Because the truth doesn't just expose them, it empowers you. And that's exactly what happened. The hurt hit hard, but I was stronger than the pain, smarter than the manipulation, clearer than the lies. And once I saw the proof, once I understood the full scope of his betrayal, the rest was just preparation. Preparation for what? The next phase? The confrontation? The exposure? The moment when all the pieces I had patiently gathered would speak louder than any excuses he could ever make.
Me acting normal. I smiled like everything was cool. You ever notice how people underestimate calm? How manipulators think if they act like nothing's wrong, the other person will fall into chaos first? Yeah, I learned that lesson fast. After uncovering months of lies, discovering patterns of betrayal, and collecting proof that could crush his entire web of deceit, I didn't act. I didn't confront. I didn't explode. I smiled. Like everything was cool. And let me tell you, that smile, it was dangerous. Because acting normal after betrayal isn't weakness, it's power. The real power isn't in screaming, crying, or demanding answers immediately. The real power is in control, in patience, in showing someone that their manipulation isn't breaking you. It's confusing. It messes with their head, and that's exactly what I needed. I had spent weeks, no, months tracking his lies. I knew every late reply, every excuse, every slip-up. I had timelines, screenshots, patterns, evidence stacked so high it would be impossible to refute. And now, the moment of patience arrived. It was time to act like nothing happened, to walk in his world unnoticed while planning my next move. So, I smiled. Not fake, not forced, not a dramatic I know look, but calm, relaxed, normal, friendly. Like everything he did was beneath me and like I still trusted him completely. The energy shift was subtle, but it was there. People notice energy. And manipulators, they notice it first. The first day I did this, it felt strange. I wanted to lash out. I wanted to confront. I wanted to scream at him for every lie, every manipulation, every sleepless night spent worrying about what was real. But I didn't. Because in this game, acting normal was the ultimate move. Smiling, laughing at jokes, engaging casually, it wasn't for him. It was for me. It was about reclaiming composure. Every text I send, calm, neutral, no accusations, no implied knowledge, just friendly, normal. Like nothing was off, and you know what happened. He started slipping. Little things. Missed details. Contradictions in stories, moments of hesitation, because manipulators get sloppy when they think. The other person is oblivious, and here's the irony. Now that I was aware, I had the advantage. Even in person, I walked in with confidence. I smiled, I laughed, I acted interested in his stories. I even engaged with him in ways that made him think nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, inside, I was observing every word, every gesture, every glance, every inconsistency. Acting normal gave me cover to study him without him realizing that I was no longer vulnerable. It was subtle warfare, calm on the surface, chaos beneath. And it was beautiful, because while he believed he had control, I was the one in the driver's seat. I had patience. I had proof. I had clarity. And most importantly, I had composure. Smiling like everything was cool also sent a message. Not to him, he didn't consciously understand it, but to myself. It reminded me I was not a victim. I wasn't broken. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't spiraling. I was steady. And that steadiness is harder to manipulate than anger, tears, or panic. The challenge, keeping it consistent. There were moments I wanted to break, little triggers. Seeing him act casual while knowing everything. Hearing him laugh at jokes he shouldn't have been laughing at. Witnessing the way he casually talked about plans that didn't include me, it burned inside. But I didn't let it show. I smiled. I nodded. I laughed politely. Everything normal. Everything calm. And because I acted normal, he started making mistakes. Every lie, every half-truth. Every carefully crafted excuse began to unravel, not immediately, but slowly. When someone believes the other person doesn't know, they become careless. They start to underestimate your intelligence, your patience, your awareness, and that's when the truth leaks. That's when contradictions emerge. That's when evidence falls right into your hands. One night stands out. We were out together, casual, friendly, everything normal. He was joking, flirting in the way he used to. I smiled, laughed, played along. Inside, I was reviewing timelines in my head, noting inconsistencies in the story he told about his day. I noticed his watch didn't match the schedule he claimed. His phone kept buzzing with notifications he tried to hide. And I saw every slip, every detail. And still, I smiled. Like everything was cool. Acting normal also gave me emotional distance by pretending everything was fine. I created a protective bubble around myself. The betrayal, the lies, the hurt, they existed. Sure, but they weren't controlling me anymore. The calm exterior shielded me from impulsive reactions, which is exactly what he wanted if he thought I was unaware. And here's the kicker, he actually began to confide in me. Not because he was honest, but because he assumed I trusted him blindly. That's the power of appearing calm, composed, and oblivious. When someone thinks you're naive or unaware, they let down their guard. They reveal things unintentionally, and those revelations, they were gold. Evidence I had patiently gathered now multiplied with his own words and actions. I remember thinking, smiling like everything was cool wasn't cowardice. It wasn't denial. It wasn't ignorance. It was intelligence. It was strategy. And every time I smiled while knowing what he had done, I felt a little more in control, a little more untouchable, a little closer to the moment when the truth would explode in ways he never imagined. Even when friends noticed my calmness, I didn't explain. I didn't hint. I didn't need to. Because composure speaks louder than words. The calm demeanor, the collected attitude, it signaled strength. It signaled someone who is no longer easily manipulated. And he noticed that too. I saw the slight shift in his behavior, the nervous glances, the hesitation in his tone, the overcompensation in his gestures. My smile was a mirror of confidence, and he could feel it, even if he didn't consciously realize why. I also used my calm act to observe his reactions to others, how he talked to friends, colleagues, even strangers, any slip, any exaggeration. Any small brag, it became part of the evidence I had collected by acting normal. I became the silent witness to his entire world, without him suspecting that I had all the pieces lined up. And the more I acted normal, the more he showed his true colors, the lies, the manipulations. The deceptions, they started surfacing in subtle ways, a forgotten message, a contradictory statement, a slip-up about where he'd been. Everything he had hidden under the guise of normalcy began to leak, and I was ready, still calm, still smiling, still observing. There were moments it was almost painful watching him act like nothing happened, knowing all the times he'd lied, cheated, or manipulated me, but smiling, staying normal. Acting composed, it turned that pain into power. It shifted the energy. It made him underestimate me. It gave me space to plan my next moves without alerting him that I was fully aware of the betrayal. The key lesson: acting normal after being betrayed doesn't mean you accept it. It doesn't mean you forgive it. It doesn't mean you're okay with it. It means you're in control. You control your emotions. You control the pace. You control the timing of your response. And that control, calm, collected, and almost invisible, is a weapon. By the end of those weeks of acting normal, I realized something profound. My calmness, my smiles, my casual responses, they were more powerful than any confrontation I could have staged at that moment, because they created a situation where he was revealing himself, slipping up and exposing his own lies, all while believing he still had control. And that's when I knew the power of my silence and composure. I didn't need drama. I didn't need shouting. I didn't need proof in the form of confrontation. My smile, my normalcy, my patience, it was already dismantling him piece by piece, quietly, effectively, and beautifully. So I kept smiling, even when my heart ached, even when my trust had been shattered, even when I was gathering all the evidence I'd need to end this chapter permanently. I smiled like everything was cool. Because when betrayal is deep, patience is key. Observation is key. Calm is key. And the next move? That would be executed perfectly at exactly the right moment. And when it happened, he wouldn't see it coming not in a million years. Smiling like everything was cool wasn't denial. It wasn't weakness. It was preparation. It was power. And in that calm, collected demeanor, I held all the cards.
Setting the trap, letting him talk, letting him lie more, there's a phase in betrayal that most people never talk about. It's not the shock, it's not the tears. It's not even the anger. It's the moment when you stop reacting and start engineering. That's where I was. I didn't rush, I didn't confront. I didn't reveal what I knew. I set the trap, and the trap wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, strategic and visible. I let him talk. I let him lie more. Because here's the truth. A liar will always hang themselves if you give them enough rope. All you have to do is stop interrupting. By this point, he was comfortable. Too comfortable. He believed I trusted him. He believed I was calm because I was clueless. He believed the story he'd been selling for months had finally stuck. And that confidence, that's when people expose everything. So I changed my approach. I stopped asking direct questions. I stopped reacting emotionally. I stopped challenging inconsistencies. Instead, I leaned back and listened. I asked open-ended questions, the kind that feel harmless. Wait, tell me that part again? Oh, really? How did that happen? Who else was there? Questions that don't accuse but invite. And he talked. Oh, he talked. That's the thing about liars. They love the sound of their own explanations. They believe if they talk long enough, the truth gets buried. What they don't realize is that every extra word is another opportunity to slip. I watched it happen in real time. He'd tell a story one way on Monday, then retell it slightly differently on Thursday. Same situation, new details, different timeline. And I didn't correct him. I didn't raise a brow. I didn't pause. I nodded, smiled, encouraged him to keep going. Because the goal wasn't to catch him once. The goal was to catch him repeatedly. I started mentally labeling his lies. This one contradicts last week. This one doesn't match the screenshot. This one overlaps with another excuse. And the more he lied, the easier it became to see the pattern. He wasn't just lying to hide something, he was lying to maintain an image. The loyal boyfriend, the misunderstood guy, the victim of crazy assumptions. So I let him build that image himself. I gave him the stage, I dimmed my reactions, I handed him the mic, and he performed. There were moments I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. He reused phrases, recycled excuses, even reused emotional responses, like he'd memorized them. I swear on everything. I would never do that to you. You know me better than that. I did know him. Better than he thought. I started noticing how he'd lied differently depending on the situation. When he felt safe, his lies were detailed. When he felt slightly threatened, they became defensive. When he felt admired, they turned arrogant. So I fed him comfort. I reassured him casually. I trust you. I'm not trippin', it's whatever. And every time I did that, he relaxed more. He stopped filtering. He stopped double-checking his stories. He assumed he was winning. That's the most dangerous assumption anyone can make. I let conversations run longer than usual. Let silence hang just enough to make him feel it. People hate silence. It makes them talk. And liars especially hate silence because they feel the need to control the narrative. So I used silence as a weapon. I'd pause after he spoke, just long enough, and he'd add more and more details, more explanations, more lies. He didn't realize he was stacking contradictions on top of contradictions. He didn't realize he was building the case against himself with his own mouth. I wasn't recording him with a device. I was recording him in my mind. Dates, names, locations, emotions, every lie was time-stamped. And the wild part, he enjoyed lying. You could see it in his posture, his confidence, the way he leaned into the story. He felt powerful, he felt clever. He thought he was manipulating me, but manipulation only works when the other person doesn't see it. I wasn't being manipulated anymore. I was observing. One night, I tested the trap just a little tighter. I casually mentioned a detail he'd lied about before, but wrong on purpose. Not confrontational, just incorrect. He corrected me immediately. That told me everything. If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't remember the details so clearly. But liars memorize their stories. They guard them, they protect them. That's when I knew the trap was working. I started letting him contradict himself within the same week, same topic, different version, and I didn't call it out. I let both versions exist, because the power move isn't correcting a liar, it's letting them forget which lie they told you. I also noticed how he'd project, how he'd accuse others of being shady, how he'd complain about dishonest people, how he'd say he hated liars. Classic. People often reveal their own guilt through projection, and I let him project freely. Every rant, every complaint, every judgment, another psychological fingerprint. The more he talked, the more I understood how calculated he really was. These weren't panic lies, these were practiced, polished, designed to protect his image while keeping me emotionally invested, and still, I smiled, still acted normal, still let him think he was safe. Inside, though, I was calm in a different way. Calm because I knew the truth. Calm because I wasn't guessing anymore. Calm because the trap was almost complete. The key to setting a trap like this is patience. Not days, not weeks, sometimes months. Letting someone believe they're in control long enough for them to expose everything. I didn't need him to confess. I didn't need him to admit anything. I needed him to prove it, and he did voluntarily. By the time I was done listening, I didn't just know that he lied, I knew how, when, why, and how often. I knew his patterns, his tells, his emotional cues. I knew which lies were defensive and which were arrogant. I knew him better than he knew himself. Setting the trap wasn't about revenge yet. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about certainty, about making sure that when the moment came, there would be no denial left, no gaslighting, no escape routes. I wasn't setting him up to fall. I was letting him walk straight into it. And the craziest part, he thanked me for understanding him, for being chill, for not overreacting like other girls. If only he knew. The trap was quiet, invisible, built from his own words, and when it finally snapped shut, it wouldn't need force, just truth.
Dropping the receipts, calm, no yelling, straight facts. The moment had arrived. The moment I had been waiting for, preparing for, and planning for months. All the patience, all the observation, all the evidence, all the careful comment led to this. And I wasn't going to waste it by reacting emotionally. I wasn't going to raise my voice or scream. I wasn't going to cry. Because true power, the kind that hits harder than anger, comes from calm certainty. From showing someone that you know the truth and letting the facts speak for themselves. I sat across from him at our usual spot, the place he thought was safe. The place he thought he controlled. He was comfortable, as usual, leaning back in his chair, confident in his lies. I smiled like I always had, calm, collected, normal. But inside, my mind was racing, ticking off every detail I had gathered. Every inconsistency, every message, every timeline, every lie. All stacked in perfect order, ready to be revealed. I started slowly, casually, like I was making conversation. Nothing dramatic, nothing accusatory, just calm, measured words. Hey, can we go over something? I just want to understand a few things. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give him an opening to gaslight me. I kept my tone neutral, but firm. The kind of tone that silently says, I'm in control here. He smiled back, oblivious. Sure, what's up? And that's when I began, piece by piece, fact by fact, not emotionally, not angrily, but methodically. First, the minor inconsistencies. Little lies he probably thought I'd never notice. The messages that didn't match his stories, the timelines that contradicted each other. I laid them out quietly, almost conversationally, letting the evidence speak louder than any emotion could. I showed him the screenshots, the texts he had deleted but that I had saved. I mentioned the times he said he was home alone versus the activity timestamps that proved otherwise. I calmly noted every small lie he told me over months. And as I did, I watched him. At first, his confidence remained. He smiled nervously, but he thought he could still talk his way out. But as I continued, dropping facts without yelling, without pleading, without overreacting, his energy shifted. The arrogance, the casual confidence, the smug attitude, it started cracking. When someone is used to controlling the narrative and suddenly the narrative is being held up with undeniable proof, they panic subtly. Not obvious, but detectable. I noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the rapid blinking, the way his hands fidgeted. The first cracks had appeared. Then I moved on to the bigger lies. The ones that hurt the most. The moments he had manipulated me emotionally while secretly talking to someone else. The weekends he said he spent with family while evidence proved otherwise. The little white lies that piled up into a mountain of betrayal. I didn't yell. I didn't beg for answers. I calmly pointed them out, one by one, letting each fact hit like a hammer. I remember the moment he realized the scope. His face changed subtly, a flicker of panic in his eyes. He opened his mouth to say something, probably to deny, probably to gaslight, probably to play victim like he always did. But I stayed calm. I didn't give him space to lie. I didn't interrupt, but I didn't respond either. Silence can be more devastating than any shout. And in that silence, the weight of his lies settled around him. I walked him through the timelines. Carefully, step by step. You said you were with friends that night, right? But your messages show you were active in a different chat at that exact time. Can you explain that? My voice didn't waver. My tone didn't spike. I wasn't accusing. I wasn't angry. I was stating a fact quietly, clearly, undeniably. And he stumbled. That's the thing about liars, they're confident when unchecked. But confronted with organized evidence, confidence crumbles. Then I moved on to the patterns, the repeated lies, the gaslighting the victim plays. I calmly listed them. Remember when I asked about this and you said I was overthinking? That happened more than once. And now I have the proof. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I just let the facts do the talking. And as I laid them out, the tension in his body grew. He shifted uncomfortably, realizing that the casual game he had been playing for months was over. I even pointed out the subtle things, the manipulations he thought were invisible. The over-explaining when he knew he was wrong. The sudden charm when he tried to distract me. The way he projected guilt onto me while hiding his own lies. I named them calmly, almost clinically. Because when you remove emotion from the exposure and leave only facts, the truth is undeniable and harder for the liar to manipulate. I noticed how small details, the ones he thought didn't matter, were hitting him hardest. His face changed when I mentioned a text he forgot to delete. His hands trembled slightly when I noted a pattern of deception he thought I hadn't noticed. And that's when I realized the real power of calm confrontation. It doesn't provoke defense, it exposes. Then came the biggest part, the revelation of multiple betrayals, the ones he thought were hidden. I listed them logically, step by step, showing timelines, screenshots, contradictions. Not dramatically, not emotionally, but methodically. Calm, straight facts, and with each fact. The panic in his eyes grew. He tried to interrupt once, to explain, to gaslight, to accuse me of overreacting. But I didn't respond emotionally. I didn't argue. I didn't let him derail the conversation. I calmly redirected to the evidence. I'm not asking for an explanation yet. I'm just stating the facts. Look at the timeline. Look at the messages. They don't match. That's what we're discussing. My tone was firm but calm, authoritative without aggression. And then it hit him, the sheer scale of what he'd done. Every small lie he thought was inconsequential, every manipulation, every betrayal, all of it laid bare, all of it undeniable, his arrogance, his confidence, his sloppiness over months, now worked against him. All those moments he thought I was unaware. All those times he played comfortable and casual became evidence, proof, receipts. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to threaten. I didn't have to cry. I just calmly, methodically, laid out everything. And that's when the silence really became deafening. The calm, the composed voice. The straight facts, it's what makes people crumble. They weren't prepared for it. They expected emotion. They expected tears, anger, panic. But I gave them nothing, only the undeniable truth. He tried to talk again, nervously, fumbling through excuses, trying to twist timelines, trying to gaslight. But I already had it all lined up. Each claim he made, each excuse he tried, each denial he attempted was countered by evidence I had already presented. And I did it without raising my voice, without dramatics, without losing control. Calm facts were the sharpest weapon in the room. I could see the realization dawn on him, the understanding that manipulation, arrogance, and sloppiness had caught up. That months of lies, casual betrayals, and victim playing were all documented, all verified, all undeniable. And I wasn't even upset. Not in the dramatic, explosive way he expected. I was calm, controlled, certain. That certainty hit harder than any yell, harder than any insult, harder than any emotional outburst. By the end of the conversation, I didn't even need to finish. The evidence spoke for itself. The contradictions, the timelines, the screenshots, the patterns, they all screamed the truth louder than any words could. I had dropped the receipts calmly, without emotion, without chaos. And that's when it truly hit him. He had been caught. Not because I lost my temper, not because I cried, not because I accused, but because the truth is undeniable when presented clearly, fact by fact, with calm certainty. And that's the real lesson I learned. Revenge isn't always loud. It isn't always explosive. Sometimes the most powerful move is patience, observation, and methodical exposure. Calm, composed, straight facts. That's what breaks someone who thought they could get away with betrayal. That's what exposes manipulation. That's what makes someone realize, finally, that the game is over and they lost. I walked away that night knowing I had done it right. No shouting, no drama, no chaos, just calm, controlled, undeniable truth. And the satisfaction, it wasn't about hurting him. It wasn't about revenge in the dramatic sense. It was about reclaiming control, about proving, to him and to myself, that manipulation lies. And betrayal can be faced and exposed with composure, intelligence, and patience. Dropping the receipts calmly was the climax of months of careful observation. Every screenshot, every timeline, every contradiction was a piece of the puzzle. And when laid out with calm authority, they do all the talking. No yelling, no tears, no begging, just facts. By the end of it, he sat there, quiet, shocked, realizing that all his carefully planned lies, all his confidence, all his sloppiness, all his arrogance had led him here. And I walked away calm, collected, and victorious, not because of anger, but because truth presented calmly is unstoppable.
Me shutting it down, save it. I know everything. The moment he realized the conversation wasn't going his way, he tried to do what he always did: talk, explain, twist, rewrite. That familiar scramble started creeping into his voice, the one he used whenever the truth got too close. He leaned forward, hands moving, words piling up fast like he could bury the facts under noise. And that's when I stopped him. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to end it. Save it, I said, calm and steady. I know everything. Those 4 words hit harder than any argument ever could. You could see it on his face, the shock, the pause, the sudden loss of control, because liars rely on reaction. They need emotion to work with. They need anger, tears, confusion, anything they can spin, but I gave him nothing. No rage, no shaking voice, just certainty. He tried again, softer this time, switching strategies. Let me explain, he said. Like explanations could rewrite months of lies, like intentions could cancel out behavior. I shook my head slowly, not out of anger, but out of finality. There's nothing left to explain, I told him. I already heard every version. I already checked every timeline. I already saw every message. And in that moment, the power shifted completely. Because when someone realizes you're not asking questions anymore, they panic. Questions mean hope. Questions mean there's still a chance to manipulate the outcome. But statements mean it's done. He opened his mouth again, probably to deny, probably to gaslight, probably to play the victim one last time. That's when I cut him off completely. Save it, I repeated. I know everything. My voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It didn't beg for understanding. It didn't need to. Truth doesn't need volume, it needs clarity. I could see his mind racing, searching for an angle, a loophole, a distraction. He tried to say I misunderstood things. Tried to say I was taking things out of context. Tried to say it wasn't what it looked like. And that's when I leaned back, calm as ever, and shut the door for good. You don't get to tell me what I saw, I said. You don't get to explain screenshots. You don't get to argue timestamps facts. Don't care about excuses. That's when he went quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the defeated kind. The kind where someone realizes they've lost control of the narrative, Where the tricks stop working, where charm does nothing, where confidence collapses into silence. I didn't insult him. I didn't attack his character. I didn't call him names. I didn't need to. The evidence already did that for me. All I did was state the truth and close the door, calmly, cleanly. I'm not here to debate, I continued. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to relive it. I'm here to end it. And when I said that, I felt something lift off my chest, not anger relief, because for the first time in months, I wasn't reacting to his moves. I was making my own. He tried one last angle emotion, apologies. Regret, that soft tone people use when they realize manipulation failed. I messed up, he said. I didn't mean to hurt you, and I didn't flinch. Because intention doesn't erase impact. Meaning well doesn't cancel lying, I replied. And apologies don't rewrite patterns. That's when I said it again, slower this time, save it. I know everything. There was nothing left for him to say after that. Every excuse collapsed under the weight of certainty. Every lie lost its power because it had already been exposed. And the most important part, I wasn't asking him to admit it. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need closure from him. I had closure because I had clarity. I stood up calmly, like this was just another conversation ending, not a relationship imploding. That calm confused him more than anger ever could. He expected tears. He expected yelling. He expected chaos. What he got was composure. And composure is terrifying to someone who relies on control. I'm done, I said simply. This conversation is over. And that was it. No back and forth, no last words, no dramatic exit, just a clean ending. I walked away knowing I had shut it down the right way, not by winning an argument, but by refusing to play the game at all. Later, when I replayed it in my head, I realized something important. Shutting it down wasn't about silencing him, it was about choosing myself. It was about refusing to carry the emotional labor of someone else's deception. It was about protecting my peace instead of chasing explanations that would never satisfy me. When you say, I know everything, you're not just telling someone you caught them. You're telling them they no longer have access to your confusion. You're telling them the era of manipulation is over. You're telling them their words don't have power anymore. And the calm is what seals it. Calm tells them you've already grieved, you've already processed. You've already moved past the stage where they mattered enough to disrupt your emotional balance. Calm says, you're too late. I didn't walk away feeling victorious in a dramatic way. I walked away feeling clear, light, free, because closure doesn't come from hearing the right apology. It comes from recognizing the truth and deciding it's enough. That was the moment I stopped being part of the story he was trying to control. That was the moment I took my power back. And all it took was 4 words, delivered without anger, without fear, without hesitation. Save it, I know everything. And when you say that tanned, mean it, there's nothing left to argue. Ending the relationship, no second chances. No closure for him. The moment I had been building toward for months had finally come. After patience, observation, evidence collection, and careful exposure, I was ready to end it. Not with drama, not with tears, not with begging for apologies, not with closure for him, because some people don't deserve a second chance and some people don't deserve closure. They only deserve the truth and the consequence of realizing it too late. I remember the calm I felt as I sat across from him one last time. The same place where countless lies had been spun, countless manipulations attempted, countless excuses offered. The place he thought was safe, where he believed he could charm and twist reality without consequence. But this time, it wasn't about charm or manipulation. This time, it was about ending it on my terms. I started by calmly summarizing the reality he had created for himself. The lies, the betrayals, the patterns of deceit. Not emotionally, not in a heated argument, just facts, laid out clearly as I had done before when dropping the receipts. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, I didn't even let my voice waver. I wanted him to see, fully and without distraction, the consequence of his actions. Everything you did, every lie you told, every manipulation, it ends here, I said. The words hung in the air, not as an accusation, but as a statement of fact. And in that moment, I could see the panic start to set in. His confidence, the one that had made him sloppy, began to crumble further. He opened his mouth, probably to defend himself, probably to explain, probably to charm, but I didn't let him. No, save it, I interrupted calmly. I know everything, and there's nothing you can say to change it. I didn't give him a chance to respond. I didn't allow him to gaslight or twist words. I wasn't here to negotiate. I wasn't here to provide him closure or satisfaction. I was here to end it on my terms, clearly and finally. Ending a relationship after betrayal isn't easy. Even when you have all the proof, the mind plays tricks. It whispers doubt. It wonders if maybe the other person wasn't fully aware. If maybe the mistakes were forgivable. If maybe there's a path back. But in my case, months of careful observation, patience, and exposure had revealed the full depth of the deception. There was no forgiveness, no understanding, no second chance warranted. Not for him. Not this time. I calmly laid out why. Every repeated pattern of manipulation, every lie that wasn't just a mistake, but part of a deliberate web. Every time he had played the victim, tried to charm or redirected blame. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I stated the facts, cold and firm, so that he could feel the weight of reality without a shred of excuse. He tried to interrupt, of course he did. People like him always try. They try to reclaim control, to confuse, to twist reality, to regain influence over someone they manipulated. But this time, I wasn't having it. I held my gaze, calm, firm, and unyielding. No, I said. There is nothing left to say. No discussion, no negotiation. No explanation you give will change the past or affect my decision. And that's when I could see it, the subtle flicker of panic, the almost imperceptible tension in his body. He had assumed for months that his lies had room to maneuver, that I was unaware, that I could be convinced, that I could be manipulated. But he hadn't counted on patience, observation, and calm. He hadn't counted on me knowing everything, holding the evidence, and refusing to react emotionally. Ending the relationship wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about reclaiming my life, my peace, my dignity, and doing it in a way that made it clear. There are consequences for manipulation. There are consequences for betrayal. There are consequences for thinking someone will allow repeated lies and abuse without repercussion. I told him calmly, there will be no second chances. No more lies, no more pretending. You don't get closure. You don't get an explanation from me. You only get the reality you created for yourself. And as I said it, I watched his face. The arrogance, the confidence, the casual charm, all of it fading. He didn't know what to say. He couldn't argue. He couldn't manipulate. The evidence was laid bare. The decision was final. And then came the hardest part. Not the confrontation, but the action itself. I told him it was over. Not as a threat, not as a tantrum, but as a statement. As a fact. This ends now, I said. We are done. My voice was calm, steady, and without hesitation. And in that instant, everything shifted. He realized that his months of manipulation, charm, and lies had led to this one unshakable truth. The relationship was over, and there was nothing he could do to reverse it. I could see the shock in his eyes. The first flicker of panic, the sudden understanding that charm wouldn't work, lies wouldn't work, excuses wouldn't work. That realization alone was satisfying, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I had reclaimed control. Because after months of deception, I was finally free to decide the terms, and the terms were clear. No second chances, no explanations, no lingering hope. He tried one last tactic. Emotion, guilt, regret. I didn't mean for this, he said, voice shaky, eyes wide. I messed up. Can't we work this out? And I didn't flinch. I didn't respond with emotion. I didn't entertain the plea. I simply looked at him, calm, unwavering, and said, there's nothing left to work out. You had every opportunity to be honest. You chose deception. I'm done. The words landed, heavy but precise. No yelling, no crying, no pleading, just clarity, just certainty. Just the finality that comes from months of observation and evidence. And the silence that followed was deafening. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the quiet that comes from knowing there's no more room to maneuver. No more excuses, no more lies that could hold power. Ending the relationship in this way without closure for him was intentional. I didn't owe him answers. I didn't owe him explanations. I didn't owe him validation. For months he had manipulated, lied, and gaslighted me, assuming I would give him the benefit of doubt, assuming I would forgive, assuming I would stay, but this time I refused. I reclaimed the narrative entirely. I didn't allow the conversation to drift into debate. I didn't answer his questions about why, beyond stating the facts. I didn't give him a chance to reframe reality. I simply stated what I knew and what I would no longer tolerate. And the freedom in that moment, freedom from manipulation, freedom from doubt, freedom from emotional labor was incredible. As I stood to leave, I felt a shift in the energy in the room. No longer fear, no longer control, just truth, just consequence, just clarity. He sat there, quiet, probably replaying every lie, every manipulation, every victim play, realizing that the relationship he thought he controlled was over forever. And I walked out calmly, deliberately, knowing I had done it right. No second chances. No dramatic closure, just a clean, unshakable ending. I didn't look back, I didn't linger. Because lingering gives them hope. Because looking back gives them power. Because any reaction I might have given would have softened the impact. But I didn't. I walked out with certainty, with composure. with control leaving him with nothing but the undeniable reality of his own choices. Ending the relationship this way calmly, without drama, without providing closure, was the final act of reclaiming my life. Months of observation, patience, strategy, and control had led to this moment. And the truth was simple. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some people don't deserve explanations. Some people only deserve the consequences of their own actions. And that's exactly what he got. No apologies would save him. No excuses would matter. No words could change what had been revealed. I had the clarity. I had the control. I had the calm. And I walked away knowing that the chapter was over, final and unassailable. No second chances, no closure for him. Only the truth, and only the consequence of realizing it too late. Some might say I was cold, some might say I was harsh, but truthfully, I was free, I was calm, I was clear, and I was finally done. Exposing the lies, not messy, just truthful. There's a difference between dramatic revenge and quiet, undeniable truth. Most people think exposing someone means yelling, confronting them in front of everyone, or creating chaos. But the real power, the kind that leaves a lasting impression, comes from clarity, facts, and calm delivery. That's what I aimed for when it was time to expose him. Not messy, not emotional, not dramatic, just the truth. Plain, undeniable truth, laid out in a way that no excuse, no manipulation, no charm could hide. I started by gathering everything I had accumulated over months: screenshots, messages, timestamps, overlapping timelines, repeated patterns, and contradictions. Every small lie he had ever told, every manipulation, every inconsistency was all there. Organized, precise, ready to be shown. I wasn't angry. I wasn't seeking revenge in a theatrical sense. I simply wanted him to face the consequences of his choices, to see how deeply his deception had been uncovered. When the time came, I didn't storm into the conversation. I didn't start with accusations or dramatic statements. I began calmly stating the facts, one by one. I need to go over some things, I said. My voice was steady, composed, unshaken. He looked at me, confident, expecting either confusion, anger, or tears. He expected emotion. He didn't expect calm certainty. And that was the first hit. I started small with minor inconsistencies. Things he had probably assumed. I wouldn't notice messages he had deleted but I had saved. Excuses that didn't line up with timelines. Little contradictions that seemed insignificant on their own but painted a clear picture when seen together. I laid them out clearly, calmly, letting each fact speak for itself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't sigh or dramatize. I simply presented reality. As I moved through the minor lies, I could see the shift in his energy. The arrogance, the smugness, the casual confidence he had relied on for so long, it began to crumble. He tried the first instinct of every liar, deflection. "That's not what happened," he said, attempting to rewrite history to spin the narrative. But I didn't argue, I didn't plead, I didn't get defensive. I calmly presented the next piece of evidence, showing exactly what had occurred, timeline by timeline, message by message. And that's when the truth started to hit him. Not like an explosion, not like chaos, but like a wall slowly rising around him. Each fact, each contradiction, each screenshot, each timeline added another brick. By the time I moved to the more significant lies, those that hurt the most, he could no longer maintain the illusion of control. I exposed the big betrayals methodically. The moments when he had manipulated me emotionally, lied about his whereabouts, or spoken to someone else behind my back. Every detail was accompanied by proof, calmly presented. No yelling, no crying, no dramatics, just facts, clear, undeniable facts. And as each truth landed, I watched him struggle internally, trying to grasp the depth of what had been uncovered. One of the most satisfying parts wasn't the facts themselves, it was the calmness with which they were presented. He had been used to me reacting, getting upset, losing composure. That had always been his leverage. But this time, there was none of that. I was composed, focused, clear. My calmness made the facts hit harder, because he couldn't spin them, argue with emotion, or manipulate my reactions. I simply laid out reality, one undeniable truth after another. I didn't need to embellish. I didn't need to dramatize. I didn't need to make him feel small with words. The evidence was enough. The patterns spoke for themselves. The repeated lies, the contradictions, the deception, it all told the story more convincingly than any speech could. And I presented it without bitterness, without anger, without vengeance, just clarity, just truth. As I exposed the lies, I also highlighted the patterns. Not to shame him personally, not to humiliate him, not to be cruel, but to show the reality of his behavior over time. The repeated excuses, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the victim playing it, all became clear when laid out logically. And the more I presented, the more he realized he had been caught in a pattern too consistent to deny. He tried, of course. The classic tactics: denial, minimization, projection. "You're misunderstanding," he said. "It wasn't like that," he claimed. "You're overreacting." But the calm presentation of facts left him no space to manipulate the conversation. Each denial was met with evidence. Each excuse was countered by proof. Each attempt to project guilt onto me was rendered meaningless by the clarity of timelines and messages. What struck me most during this process was how easily people expose themselves when they believe someone is unaware. He thought I didn't know. He thought I was emotionally vulnerable. He thought he still had control. And because I had been patient, calm, and observant, he handed me everything I needed to expose him. Each lie, each manipulation, each small slip-haul delivered freely, without realizing that the trap had been set. The key to exposing lies isn't confrontation, it's evidence and calm. When someone realizes you know everything and you aren't reacting emotionally, they panic internally. They try to talk faster, explain more, rationalize more. And that's when they reveal even more contradictions. I let him talk. I let him explain. I let him lie more. And each time I added it to the collection, calmly noting inconsistencies, preparing the full picture. By the time I finished, he was quiet. Not peacefully quiet, but quietly panicked. The realization that all his efforts to manipulate, deceive, and control me were now completely transparent hit him slowly but inevitably. He couldn't argue with the facts. He couldn't manipulate the truth. He couldn't charm his way out. The lies had been fully exposed, methodically, calmly, undeniably. And I didn't gloat. I didn't make it personal. I didn't attack his character. I simply stated the truth and let it speak for itself. Because facts don't need emotion. Facts don't need drama. Facts don't need an audience. They stand alone. And in that moment, the truth was undeniable. What was most satisfying wasn't the act of exposing him, it was the control I maintained. I wasn't reacting emotionally. I wasn't desperate for a confession. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I was calm, clear, and composed. And that calmness amplified the power of the truth. He realized that for the first time, and that realization was its own consequence. I could see him processing, struggling to reconcile his version of events with the facts I had laid out. Every excuse fell apart under scrutiny. Every deflection was met with evidence. Every attempt to minimize the lies was invalidated by timelines and repeated behavior. And all I did was calmly guide him through it. Not messy, not dramatic. Just the truth. By the end, there was silence. Not the kind of silence that allows for discussion, explanation, or manipulation, but the kind of silence that comes when the truth is clear and undeniable. He sat there, absorbing the facts, realizing the full scope of what he had done, and I left him in that silence, calm, composed, and in control, knowing that the lies had been fully exposed, without drama or theatrics, only the quiet force of truth. Exposing lies in this way calmly, factually, and methodically teaches a lesson far stronger than anger ever could. It shows that manipulation and deception only work if someone allows them to. It shows that truth, patience, and observation can dismantle a carefully constructed web of lies without the need for chaos. And it shows that you don't need to stoop to the level of drama to reclaim your power. When I walked away that day, I wasn't proud because I had exposed him. I was proud because I had remained composed. I was proud because I had taken control. I was proud because I had allowed the truth to speak without adding emotional fuel. I had demonstrated that exposure doesn't need theatrics. Exposure just needs factsan.com. The truth is more powerful than any confrontation, more effective than any argument, and more lasting than any dramatic outburst. And by exposing his lies calmly and truthfully, I took back my power. I ended the manipulation. I ended the deception. And I made it clear that the game was over. Not with a yell, not with tears, not with chaos, but with undeniable.com and measured truth.